Hi everyone, we're going to listen in on a conversation with the faculty of the Master of Arts and Certificate in Foreign Language Teaching at Michigan State. So in our various meetings, we talk a lot about how we do what we do so that we're effectively training language teachers online. And at the beginning, there was skepticism. There were people who said, you can't do that. You can't teach teachers online. And I get where some of that is coming from, but I think we found ways to make sure that it's dynamic and it's interactive, and you're seeing examples and you're talking through what you're doing in class, and our students are able to talk about their own, in-service experiences and make those connections, and that's richer in a lot of ways. But then also, in the last many months, year and a half now, we've had the online language teaching short format courses that were offered by the university, and those are now available and have led to a lot of thinking about what you need if you're going to teach a language online. And then also the community language school in CELTA is now virtual again this year. And so you have kids learning languages online, and otherwise they would be coming and sitting on the carpet in CELTA, and so what I wanted to hear you guys talk with you about is the difference between training language teachers online versus training language teachers to teach online. So Luca, you talked about creating the online language teaching, those short courses.
Yeah. So we've done a lot of work with experienced language instructors that then need to make a transition to move online. And I think for that, the assumption we start with is that the language teachers are coming to us already have the tools to teach languages, but what they need is that someone to help them understand how the different contexts needs to be factored in when they go to teach language in this format. And I think, for example, some of the practical things we look at is like how to communicate with students online, especially looking at written communications. We look a lot at structuring or making the most out of the asynchronous space. I think we have this assumption, and rightfully so, that live interaction is important for language teaching and language learning, but there's a lot that can be done to scaffold and set up language learning activities in the asynchronous space so that the face-to-face time is maximized for its potential, right? So we're actually looking at all the things that are around methodology, accessibility, for example, to create accessible and effective content. Those are a lot of the things that need to be considered when moving from face-to-face to online teaching, and that's something that we really focus on with our participants.
It's like mobilizing skills they already have, using those in that space.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then not just turning on a Zoom meeting and calling that a class, but everything you build around that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's there's some obvious differences when we're talking about teaching languages online versus teaching language teachers how to teach online in terms of the content, right? For language students, we're looking at language, their form of communication, this tool that they're going to be employing when they go outside of the classroom. Whereas for teachers, we're talking about in some cases we're talking about methods that are very practical. In other cases, we're talking about theories and methods that can help them think about their practice and really reflect on it and improve what they're doing. And so in that sense, it's some really concrete ideas versus really abstract ideas, and getting these ideas across. But in that same sense, there's a lot of similarities between the two, in that really some of the approaches that we're looking to do is we want our language teachers to make connections between these theories and what they're doing in the classroom, just like we want our language students to make connections between the vocabulary and grammar that they're learning in the classroom and how that applies to real world authentic contexts, right? Mm-hmm. And we want both groups to be reflective in that. We want students to reflect on the language that they're learning and using, and we want teachers to reflect on what they're doing in the classroom. So there's a lot of similarities as well.
Like what we teach in MAFLT, those are content courses. They're not language courses. And
right.
Yet there are things we bring to that come from our experience as language teachers, where we value interaction and we want to create space for that and those kinds of things. Whether it's asynchronous.
Just to add to that conversation, for example, many of the learning spaces that we design in our MAFLT courses, I think, can be somehow modeled into language classes, because we don't want to simply treat that asynchronous space as a place where we add a link and then they're going to read through it and just post as a response to what they read, but we want them to be engaging with that material in different ways. So even though we may not have synchronous meetings in some courses, there are other ways and other tools that we can use to create that space that is very important for learning, and that they feel like they are connected to other people, not to the content and to the language in different ways. So there are ways to design these spaces that language teachers can model from what we do in MAFL to teach their own languages online, even though it may be a different content, as Fred pointed out.
And I think that's where it also becomes important to look at the whole program and not just look at the individual course. Like, so the connections they build in one course then get renewed in another course, and they're connecting over time. But then, so like, that's for MAFL. And then, so if you have an opportunity to teach a language online and you want to make the most of being able to teach online, you're tutoring, or you've got heritage learners in a class or something like this, what can you do in the online space? And I'm thinking, doing more with, teaching strategies, or more with pointing them to resources, more with bringing in media that you can show, not muting and having them muting and unmuting all the time so that they lose all their momentum, things that you can do in that space.
For me, my real quick and simple advice or strategy would be to have teachers look at the online communities as their students' classmates. That's the affordance of being online, is that you are connected to a whole world of communities, right? Not just one community, multiple communities. Have your students go into these online communities and ask questions and bring that back into your classroom for discussions. Like, that's your world. It's a new world, and it can be a little scary, but look at it as a new environment that you're operating within.
And maybe connected to.
Sorry, go ahead, Bruna.
I really like this idea of having the community as a keyword to somehow guide our decisions for online teaching, but I would add another word, which is communication. So really pay attention in the way that we communicate in online spaces, and that can make make the whole difference, actually, because we want people to talk to us. We want people to make real meaning when we talk. So how are we going to engage with those communities matter? And that's how we are going to frame the way we use language in that space. So maybe community and communication could be two keywords to guide our decisions.
Another one's clarity, just making sure that the medium doesn't get in the way. They know what to do and how to do it, and you do enough training in the technology itself. But also that they're in their own context, and use the context they're in that they can then bring to you in that online space. Even if it's a kid grabbing their stuffed animal off the shelf, to bring to the video.
We've got our own 3 C's.
Four C's.
Yeah, there we go.
Context.
Our own 4 C's. The 4 C's. I've got a list of those. Like, I've got. I was brainstorming like, what did online language teachers need, especially for young learners. But it's like, these are my new 5 C's. But yeah, it's kind of those things. Luca, did you have something to add? You wanted to add?
Just wanted to add that another thing that we can, just following what Fred and Bruno were saying, that paying attention to what we as people do online as tasks. That's another thing. Like, we want to do authentic things, and when we're in classroom, we do authentic, face-to-face thing. But I mean, we shop online. We do a bunch of things online, right? So those could be authentic endeavors that we can can be modeled in an online class as well.
Put more emphasis on digital literacy that way. So that was fun. Yeah, I think there's a lot still to figure out, but it's good that we're thinking about that, and our students are too. So great. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right, got it.
Bye.
Okay. All right,
Bye.
thanks, guys. Goodbye.